Hello everyone, welcome to the Watch Tailor channel where we take watches, give them a little tweak and make them different or better. So in this one we're going to be taking a look at the Lunar Pilot, one of my favourite all-time watches, but unfortunately it's too big for me so I can't actually wear one. Really wish Bulova would make a smaller 4A 42mm version and I'd snap one up in a heartbeat, but they won't. So yeah, anyway, the best we can do is this, I suppose. So if you've seen this before, I basically just take watches like this and edit them to make them look different than what they were originally intended to. So the first thing I actually did with this one was not started with this. I actually made it a little bit smaller. So this I'm kind of making like a sports style watch, as you've seen by the description. So obviously sports watches, they can be big, but I wanted this one to be a little bit more wearable for my size wrist. So the first thing I did was removed all the stuff from the dial. So you can see we've removed all the chronograph features. So you can see those 3 sub-dials have gone. Yeah, we've still got a bit of an issue there, but I'm going to clean all that up once we've carried on with the edit. But yeah, I just think it looks really quite plain, but again we'll fill all that in later on. But I really like how it looks already. So now we're going to remove 2 important elements of the watch that sort of gets rid of the whole chronograph feature, and that is removing the pushers on the side. I think they are probably one of the most iconic features of the Lunar Pilot, the sort of winglet shape pushers, but obviously in a sports watch that's not a chronograph, you don't need them. So the next thing I did was remove the date window. If this is your first video and you subscribe, which I highly recommend you do, thank you, you'll know that I hate date windows. So every chance I get, date window's gone. So now we've got all these sort of mismatched indices, obviously because they have to be truncated, made smaller for the sub-dials, but now we don't have sub-dials, obviously we have to replace the indices. So well, that's what I've done. So I've removed them, and you can also see I cleaned up the dial on the same layer. You will note though that there are some light patches where the indices are going, and obviously we have to replace said indices, which we will do in a minute. But yeah, it's again looking a little bit weird. So now I decided to add in some dial texture. I'm not really sure how I feel on this, so you can always sort of turn it on and off depending on if you like it or not. So I'll show it you with and without when it's all done. So here is the texture, and I've basically just used a really light grain texture, like a sandpaper, but really fine. So it's very subtle, but it just gives it a little bit more character, I think. But again, you can always turn it off, and I'll show it you complete on and off. So you get an idea what it looks like with both. So now you can see we've got these gaps we need to fill in. So first thing, obviously, we need to replace the indices. So what I've done is duplicated the top indice, the 12 o'clock one, and we're just going to fill in the spaces. So we've got one there and one there. So you can see that's created a nice symmetrical look, and again you'll find out on the channel that I do like my symmetry, and that is, apart from the tachymeter which we'll sort out, is really nice and symmetrical. So next thing, I decided to come up with a name for the watch. Obviously you can't call it the Lunar Pilot anymore because it's not a chronograph, so I had a bit of thinking and this is what I come up with: the Lunar Sport. Yeah, it's not the most creative or inventive, but it's definitely catchy and fit in to what we're trying to do here. I've also sort of gone with this more modern text, because obviously I want it to be a little bit more modern and sort of thingy looking, sporty looking, so that's why I've chosen that sort of text. It's got it's modern, sporty, and I think it works quite well. So now we need to sort of get rid of all the elements that we don't actually need anymore. So the first thing I decided to do was add a replacement bezel. And obviously the reason for that is because, well, we don't need the tachymeter anymore. So one of my favourite things to do is do a circular brushed bezel. But I thought, the silver tone steel against the steel, it doesn't really work. There's not enough contrast. So what I did is I've got this black brushed steel instead, and I just think it just really creates a nice contrast. Again, you know, we've got that same colour here, so we've got the steel against the grey, and then we've got a sort of radial finish to the minute track, and we've kept that as well because that's you know, one of my favourite elements. But here now we've got that contrast. So we've got the steel, we've got a different textured steel, and then we've got a different colour steel. So it all really works. So now we've got these little accents here from the tachymeter. Obviously we don't really want that because, you know, we don't need it. So I've added a secondary inner ring, and this is basically just to break it up. So now we've got separation, we've got framing, we've got contrast, which I just think really works. So we've got a mimicked bezel on the inside. So basically it's like a two-piece bezel. So this could almost be like a rehawk perhaps, just to break up the you know, the silver, then black, then we've got silver and black again. So it's nice, and it just frames the dial and everything really well, and I just think it looks really nice. I think again it's got that sporty vibe, but you could probably, you know, dress this one up a little bit as well, so it's quite versatile. And then just to give a little nod to the sporty aesthetic I'm going for, I just give the second hand arrow tip a red accent. And again, I just think it just gives it a little bit of pop of interest. And again, that really sort of cements it as a sports watch. So what do you guys think? I think it looks absolutely awesome. And if Bulova actually made one of these, I'd snap one up, especially with these dimensions. So we've got a 40mm diameter, 46.5 lug to lug, 20mm lug width. Oh, that would be perfection. So yeah, absolutely love this one, guys. And if they had my dimensions, what I think, these are sort of my perfect dimensions, so they're not perfect for everyone, but yeah, 40mm, 46.5 lug to lug, 20mm lug width, boom, perfection, absolute perfection if they made one that size. So now I did promise you that I'd remove the dial texture, so that's what it looks like with the texture. Gives it a little bit of character and a little bit of interest. Obviously you could tone it down a little bit, so here we can just you know, change the opacity so it's not as strong, so you can see now, you know, it's a little bit more subtle, so you'd probably have to look at that one a little bit more close up. But then if we turn it off altogether, we've got a flat, and I've darkened the dial up a little bit just to sort of separate it from the Lunar Pilot, but you can sort of see that it is, you know, based upon that. So there's no texture, there's texture, very, very subtle, but I think it just adds that little extra dimension to it. Obviously you'd probably see that more on a dive style watch though than that, so I think we'd probably just stick with the flat. So it's dark grey. I didn't want to go all the way black, so I've just sort of kept it dark grey, and I think it works really well. So what do you guys think? Do you think I've made a nice looking watch? I think I do. I think I do. I think I have made a really nice watch. But let me know what you think. Is this something, you know, that you'd consider from Bulova, or would you just give it a complete swerve? Let me know. Have a good one.